Welcome back, our co-host from the first segment. He is the Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Good morning, Rob. Great to be here on this warm day.
Former president of the Berkeley County Commission. Jason Barrett, who is the finance chair in the Senate, and not the Senate president, as one of us introduced him incorrectly as earlier.
What does mean, one of us?
One of us in this room did that.
Yeah, but he should be the president.
I don't want to point any fingers at anybody, but it was me. Mr. Barrett, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Also, the longest tenured member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carr.
Good morning.
How are your Cardinals doing?
They're trying to recover from the fact they got swept and shut out 3 straight times by the Pirates.
Everyone's trying to recover.
That's hard. That's hard to recover from that.
Did the Pirates just finally go below 500 as the
all time?
All time.
Yeah. Then they bounced back by sweeping the Detroit Tigers, of all teams. Like one of the best teams in baseball. Yeah. I can't explain it.
I went to a Pirates game last year.
You were the one.
Beautiful stadium.
Yes.
But great atmosphere. Terrible ball team.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you, Bob Nutting. Thank you. Sell the team, Bob.
I actually saw Bob while I was there and talked to Bob while I was there.
I know you sent me a thing, and I said, please tell him to sell the team.
I did not say that to him.
Chris Strobel did the same thing. He said, hey, I'm sitting here with Bob Nutting. What do you want me to tell him? I said, sell the team. That's it. 3 words. Sell the team. Also, attorney at law Lawrence Schultz. Good morning, sir. How was the commute on Route 9 this morning?
Great.
Awesome.
Absolutely great. I got here a half hour before I usually do. Apparently, Frontier took the day off. Usually it's jammed up. I rolled right through Hedgesville. There's that 4-way light. And generally...
Was it red when you rolled through it?
No. Generally, I'm at least, back at the Dollar General, the new Dollar General they built, or near the post office at the time I first stopped, and it's 3 or 4 trips through the light. Today, just rolled right through.
I guess it's vacation season.
It must be.
Yeah. Also via telephone, Joseph Joey Torts Ferretti, attorney at law as well. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, everyone.
But Joe's been active on Facebook already. He has not been able to say anything, but he's been active.
He's been commenting. I saw that.
Commenting, yeah.
Yeah, he got involved.
Yeah, all those comments by Jason Barrett, they get the juices going. So.
Joe, we have had the heat is arriving here today, but you've had it in the south now for a good week. What have your temperatures been like in Georgia?
Oh, it's oppressive down here. We're mid to high 90s. Humidity is high. That's why I'm planning a trip to Pocahontas County here. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, go to the hills, do some mutton. Well, Joe is our leadoff hitter each week, and Joe, assume the position, as they say.
Wow, I don't know about that.
I was going to say, we don't want to start the show that way, Rob.
Animal House. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
That vision entered my head.
Kevin Bacon.
Okay. Well, as you previewed, Rob, I want to address the decision yesterday in the Raleigh County Circuit Court by the judge there, Judge Michael Froebel, who granted a preliminary injunction in favor of 3 students who were suing the State Board of Education, claiming that they should not have to be subject to the compulsory vaccination law in West Virginia due to religious reasons. So I want to examine it just very briefly, and then I'll have a question, of course, at the end. Look, we know in West Virginia that we've had compulsory vaccine law for now 120 years. That law has been pretty much the same dating back to 1905. It requires vaccines if you're going to attend a public school in the state of West Virginia, with one exception. If you have a need for a medical exemption, you can apply for that. And the regulations in the state are pretty strict. You got to have a signed doctor's certificate. You got to specify what vaccines are at issue for the individual medically. And the medical certificate from the doctor has to be supported by lab findings or other medical literature supporting the need for the exemption. So they're very specific in state law what you have to have in order to get an exemption, the one exemption that West Virginia law allows. So the debate now is raised to a different level. Jason is right. Since 1998, at least what my studies show, there's been over 60 efforts in the state legislature to grant non-medical exemptions. They have failed every time except for 2024, when a law did pass out of the legislature, but we know Governor Justice vetoed it. In 2025, the same effort was made to pass a law for religious or moral, conscientious objections, and it did not pass out of the legislature. So the current law is medical exemptions only. Along comes our new governor, and within a couple of weeks of being sworn into office, he issues an executive order saying, no, we shall respect religious exemptions as well as medical when it comes to school vaccines. And that's basically the fight that's going on today. Now, this judge heard the evidence and with real granularity decided that, well, the vaccines, we have basketball games and we don't check people at the door for the vaccine status and all. So this vaccine thing seems to have some holes in it. So I'm going to grant these 3 students their religious exemptions without examining anything about the religious side of the argument. The law in West Virginia, and this background is very important for the debate, the law in West Virginia is very clear. Number one, the Religious Freedom Act only speaks of religion. It doesn't address morals. It doesn't address conscientious objections or personal beliefs. It only deals with religion. In fact, the law specifically says that the religious belief has to be sincere if you're going to invoke the protections of that law. Secondly, in West Virginia, and this is an issue that did not even get addressed by this judge, do executive orders trump the state law? In 1986, our West Virginia Supreme Court visited that very issue when the then sitting governor tried to order through executive order the Department of Corrections to do something. That case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, if contrary to law, the governor's executive order is invalid. That's the law in West Virginia. So what I've got to wonder here, since I think this whole thing of claiming a religious exemption is a fiction, no organized religion in this country has as a basic theological tenet that vaccines should not be followed by, or allowed by their people. There's no organized religion that recognizes that. So this is, as Jason said, this is a fiction. But yet that fiction prevailed in a state court with clear state law regarding the validity of an executive order, with clear state law regarding what is allowed by religious freedom, and with clear state law regarding what is compelled by our vaccine law. So my question this morning to the panel is, are we really going to have an intellectually honest discussion about this issue with adherence to the law, or are we going to cave to another improper executive authority power that is being improperly exercised by the governor? I'm dismayed that the legislature is not a party to these lawsuits because they didn't pass religious exemptions, yet we had a state law in the books that they did pass, which has been in effect for 120 years, not a peep from the legislature. So I'm just wondering if we're going to have an honest debate about this issue, or if politics and a caving to executive authority is going to be the rule of the day.
Yeah, I'd like to know, where are all these Republicans that were complaining about activist judges a couple of months ago? They're all kind of quiet this morning, aren't they? Shouldn't there be a lot of Republicans complaining about activist judges on this decision? This is an activist judge decision if I've ever seen one. Anyway, that detracts from Joe's question. So we go with Larry Schultz first here. Larry?
Okay. Plainly, to me, what the governor is doing is simply performance art. By that I mean, I'm going to reach out and help this group of people that doesn't want to have vaccines for their children by making a rule without standards of proof that you actually have any religious belief of any kind. And I'm going to mollify that group of people that's upset and would like to have their kids duck the vaccine requirement. And then we now have a judge who has gone along with this. that has nothing, they have not yet addressed the actual issue is, first of all, if we're going to have a religious exemption, what is the requirement that you show that the belief, as Joe said, is sincere? No discussion of that at all. So the rule right now is not just your kid's religious beliefs outweigh my kid's vulnerabilities when we send them to the public school, but it's in some ways even worse than that, because we're not going to actually require that there be a religious part to this exemption at all. If you don't want your kid to have a vaccine, then we're good to go. That's being done, and the reason I call it performance art is there may be, somebody might disagree, but I don't think so, a problem or two with the West Virginia public education system that needs to be addressed 10 years ago. And why aren't we doing something about that? This is what a governor or a president will do, issue an executive order to make a big stir about something like this when he doesn't have the ability or the authority or the will to address the actual terrible problems that West Virginia education has. This is a performance, and it has nothing to do with the future of West Virginia's education system.
Mr. Michael Carl.
Well, I have been generally a supporter of the governor, but I have to acknowledge that I agree with the criticism that's just been presented. You can't. It's just wrong. And I grew up, in West Virginia and had the mandatory vaccination system in place, and lived with it and survived so far through it. And I just think the governor is absolutely wrong on this point.
Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, actually, Joe's question generates a lot more questions from me than opinions. So I'd love to ask a series of questions.
Please do.
We'll find out. One of the things is there was a previous, the day before, a hearing from the different aspect of this religious vaccination. That was the judge chose not to rule because of lack of standing. Would that have influenced the decision that came out of Raleigh County? What does this do? I'm sorry, Joe?
No.
Okay.
The other case you're referring to was dismissed because the people filing the lawsuit failed to follow the law and provide the state with 30 days notice before they filed their lawsuit. It was a technicality.
Yeah, I knew it was a technicality, but the fact, if something had emerged from that, this is hypothetical, something had emerged, would we have any more guidance from what we have right now? The other one is, what the school, even though the Raleigh County is very narrow, does this put undue pressure on a Board of Education such as Berkeley County, which I already know there's a couple of different views in Berkeley County Board of Education? I think they've taken a very courageous stand to say that until we get a hearing from the Supreme Court, we're going to go with what the law says. And the third question is, as I think Jason mentioned earlier, or maybe Joe did, this really comes down, more so than the religious vaccination issue, comes down to which takes precedent. And a law that had been on the books for several years, a law that is now that was passed a couple of years ago that has now been more broadly interpreted than what it had been in the past, or thirdly, the executive order. I don't see how the Supreme Court can afford to tarry very long on this. They're going to need to wade in and to make a decision. There's too many unknowns right now, and too many are in limbo until a decision's been made. I don't know if the governor intended doing this or not, but what he's done, I think, has introduced a quagmire in the interpretation of the laws versus executive orders.
Senator Barrett.
Well, one of the things that I think that needs to be pointed out, and Joe mentioned it and Mike mentioned it too, is that this law has been around since 1905, this mandatory vaccine law to enter school. But I think we should look at the vaccines that were required in 1905, look at the ones that were required when Mike Carl went to school, and look at the ones that are required now. And so I don't think that it's a apples to apples comparison when we talk about what is required of now, what is required 120 years ago. I think what Bill just mentioned and what I mentioned in the first segment was, I don't think this is the governor just issuing an executive order without a leg to stand on. I think that he is citing what Bill just mentioned, a religious freedom bill that was passed 2 years ago as the reason for the executive order, as the backing for the executive order. So I think that's very important to know. And it looks like this court has decided, has been somewhat in agreement with the Governor Morrissey. So I think this is going to continue to be an issue the legislature faces. I agree 100% with Bill that the Supreme Court is going to have to act on this and should act on this fairly quickly. Would fully expect the new justice to be there prior to taking that on. And I think it's going to be one of the most talked about court cases in West Virginia history for a long time.
Joe, back to you.
Yeah, Jason, about the governor's action, I would have liked the circuit court judge in Raleigh County to do a deep dive on that and what the Religious Freedom Act in West Virginia really entails in black and white, because it states explicitly that any claim of a religious exemption regarding any law in West Virginia, not just vaccine law, requires a sincere belief. Now, if you read the governor's executive order, his executive order is a perversion of that law, because he gets into stuff about conscientious objectors and moral and philosophical reasons as an underpinning for a religious exemption. And that is not what the legislature stated in the law that was passed. The governor has improperly expanded on that to the point where now you could just basically cite any reason. So what we have here today in two ways is very unworkable. Number one, we've got the State Board of Education, and we've got county boards of education completely without a clue as to what they're supposed to do with school starting in a few weeks because of this circuit court decision and because of the governor's actions. And secondly, we've got an unworkable situation. If you follow and adopt what the governor wants to happen, just imagine this. If you claim a medical exemption, which has been honored for 120 years in West Virginia, you got to come forth with specifics.
But most of those are denied.
You got to come forth with signed certificates from a doctor that has to be supported by medical evidence. The Religious Freedom Act, according to the governor, only requires a note from your parent. That's it. And I would argue that both a medical exemption and a Religious Freedom Act exemption, they impact public health. There's a balancing, a weighing of interest there. To require a note from your parent as the only basis for claiming an exemption for religious freedom when we have these strict requirements for medical exemptions makes no sense. So the bottom line here is, I agree with you, Jason, that we are engaged in a fiction here. We are requiring parents to lie when they claim a religious exemption. So either fix the law or at least do away with this notion that we should have religious exemptions right now, because the law doesn't allow for it. And if we're going to follow the law and have an honest debate about this, there's more work for the legislature to do if you want other exemptions. And the governor, of all people, should respect that.
And to complicate matters more, Joe, is that now this is pitting the State Board of Education against the governor. So this is putting the local Board of Education even more of a quagmire than there were before. It comes back to one issue, and take the vaccination out of the equation. What is the role between executive orders and statutes on the books? And that needs to be resolved by the Supreme Court very quickly.
Amen. And that again, remember, I did cite that 1986 decision that the Supreme Court already addressed that and said any EO, contrary to state law, is invalid. So that's where we are presently. To me, the decision is pretty simple here. Are we going to follow the law or not?
I think there's some confusion on the religious request for an exemption as to what it is. There aren't. I mean, I guess you could look at Christian scientists who kind of steer clear of medicine, period, in most cases. But the objection stems from, we are many generations removed from this, from fetal cell tissues, from abortions being used to develop or further develop vaccinations, right? So that's the objection. I don't want to participate in anything that came from an abortion, okay? Now, those cells aren't used now. It's copies of cells, generations and generations and generations down the road. But that is the original basis. But those cells have also been used for treatment for the following: diabetes, cancer, heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis, cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, infectious diseases like HIV, Ebola, and the Zika virus. So if you're claiming this exemption for vaccinations, if your child then gets diabetes or cancer or heart disease or cystic fibrosis, will you also object to getting your child treatment for those diseases? Will you be consistent? Which makes me wonder, and I think the answer is no.
But they have the right to do.
But it makes me wonder, is this really more political than it is religious for a lot of people?
I think that the folks that come and lobby, citizens who come and advocate, is a better word, at the Capitol, believe this 100%. This is not political for them. This is about their child, their family, and what they think is best for their family. That is really the driving force at the Capitol as to why there has been momentum and why there's a continued push, is because of families who advocate at the Capitol during the 60-day session year after year. It has nothing to do with politics.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that, but will they also decline treatment for, my kid just got diabetes? Well, I'm not going to use a diabetes treatment for my kid because those treatments for cure, or, for the treatment of it could also have been derived from fetal cells. My kid's got cancer. We're not going to do the treatment for the cancer because some of that came from fetal cells.
And Jason, you're probably right. The families go there not politically, that's not their intent. But it very quickly becomes political. And so you cannot divorce the politics from that. The other thing is, when the families appear in front of the session, they're taking it from the position, this case now, against vaccination. What is not done are probably many, many, many more families that have benefited from vaccinations or the research that has been generated from cells research in times past. So this has been counted. We tend to get one side of the picture during the session, and that's invariably wrapped in politics.
Oh, I think it's very clear that both sides are heavily represented in the Capitol on this issue.
Joe, any final thoughts as we head into the break?
Yeah, I just think I find it ironic that this governor, who made his bones as an attorney general suing over the improper exercise of executive authority, is now wanting to govern the state of West Virginia by executive order.
It's always better when you're the guy in charge. That's all I can say, right? Hey, good opening segment there, Joe. We appreciate that as always. Bill, you are on the clock along with Mr. Barrett. When we come back after the break, the part of the show during the week where we hope Joe's unmuted. Joe, take it from here.
I am unmuted, but unfortunately, I'm in a diatribe here with Brad on Facebook.
Are you keyboarding back and forth with Brad Knoll?
Yeah, Brad Knoll, yep, faithful listener. Rob, we're located at 201 East John Street in beautiful downtown Martinsburg, answering questions daily about personal injury, insurance claims, automobile accidents. If you have any of that going on in your life, unfortunately, you can give us a call at 304-264-8505 or visit us on the web at wvjusticelawyers.com.
Thank you, Joe. Much appreciated there. As we welcome back our co-hosts from the first hour. That includes Mr. Ferretti via telephone, Mr. Schultz, attorney at law, here in studio as well, scribbling furiously his notes from what Mr. Ferretti just said.
What some of us have instead of a memory.
Notes. What's left of what was once a memory. Yeah, Mr. Michael Carl, longest tenured member of our crew.
Good morning.
Senator Jason Barrett, Finance Chair in the Senate.
Happy to be back in the fat chair.
No longer a heavy man, though.
Who?
You.
216, actually.
A trim 216.
Now, do you want to say trim? Yeah, I'm not going to stop
I'm
you.
trying to help you. Work with me. And now with issue number 2, the Admiral Bill Stubblefield. Bill.
Well, Rob, if you've listened to me the last couple so weeks, you'll not be surprised at the issue that I'm going to put on the table. Early part of this year, shortly after the Trump administration took over, we heard a lot about DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. That's objective was to get rid of a lot of government employees, if the ones they did not get rid of, and make life pretty miserable for them. They painted everybody with the same brush. They were inept. They were wasting taxpayers' money. They had very little regard for the work they had done. They had very little regard for the contribution they had been making. But they summarily came in a lot of cases. They literally just they turned off their computers. They locked them out of the office. They had no recourse. They did not have the day in court. It was just they were basically summarily dismissed, but with the image that was painted, I think, very deliberately, that they were in effect inept, or some cases no integrity at all. I think universally, looking at the numbers, they were universally condemned. The DOGE was condemned by the public as a whole. Something like 60%, 65% felt the DOGE had overextended. Yet I see what we had in Jefferson County recently, that reminiscent, not step by step, but reminiscent of what we saw in the DOGE. We had the county commissioners that decided with very little advance notice, even though Mike Mood the other day said it was all done. None of it was done behind closed doors, which I respect Mike's comment on that, and hopefully it was not done behind closed doors. But it was the Development Authority was dismissed in total. 15 members. They were said you're no longer have a job. Basically, they were all volunteers. They were all doing it for the love of the county. They're not being reimbursed at all, but they were taking pride in what they were doing. The county commission took exception to the direction they were going. Did not call them in. Did not have public hearings. Did not give them a chance to really explain what they were doing. So they were summarily dismissed. By this, it left the impression that the the Development Authority had not been doing their job. They had not been doing the job the way the county commission wanted to do it, but they had not been doing the job. There was that image, the same thing that we have with DOGE, that they were inept, or they were not. They were wasting taxpayers' money. I don't think that's true. I think the individuals that were there trying to do the job as they felt it was most appropriate. If the county commission had held a series of public meetings saying what they were planning to do, what they felt they would want more out of, or a different direction out of the Development Authority, that'd been one thing. We did not get that. It was just a summarily come in without any warning whatsoever. You all have been eliminated now. Admittedly, some of you will be rehired or reappointed. Some of you will not be reappointed. All of them though, went away with that stigma of we were not doing a job correctly, and I think that had reminiscence of what we saw nationwide with the DOGE. My question to my colleagues: am I correct in viewing it this way? Has the DOGE actually go to Jefferson County?
All right, Joe Ferretti, go first via telephone.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting parallel you draw, Bill, and I think there's some elements of that. We seem to be of the attitude these days, when you win elected office, everything has to be your way, that you have a mandate, and this is what the people voted for. I mean, we hear that quite often. And sometimes I think the relevant question is, even though you can do something, should you do something? And here with the wholesale dismissal of the entire panel. And by the way, additional things were done. You know, they're changing the composition of the panel, how many people are going to serve on the Development Authority, and from what geographical areas of the county are they going to be representing? Because there's some concern about whether municipalities are going to have a lesser voice in the workings of the Development Authority. So it seems to me when you go down that path to that extent, perhaps there should have been more deliberation. There should have been more public input. And I think that's what a lot of people are upset about, both on the federal and state level and now county level. Where's the public input on all this? And where was the deliberative actions where the pros and cons are weighed before such striking action is taken? I think that is foreboding, and I think it's something we should all be concerned about going forward, is that when you win elected office, yes, you know, you want to have your own program in place, but, you know, it's not carte blanche. You do have to respect the other voices in the community.
Jason Barrett.
Well, I don't think this was necessarily the most diplomatic way to handle this. And I wouldn't draw the comparison to Doge this. And you know, I listened to some of the interview of a couple of the folks that were on the Jefferson County Development Authority. I listened to some of that interview. I listened to some of Michael Mood the other day. And I don't necessarily have a problem with someone, with a county commissioner saying, you know what, this board is going in the wrong direction. And I think we need to reshuffle the deck. I think we need to start over. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Now, I've never sat in a Jefferson County Development Authority meeting that I can remember. I may have been a guest at one time to speak about legislative stuff, but I haven't been there to listen to what direction they're trying to go in, whether that is, I mean, ultimately this comes down to the folks that want to bring business into Jefferson County and those that want to be extremely restrictive on business that comes into Jefferson County. And that's the controversy here that I think is at the forefront of this. And I think Jefferson County, whether it's Development Authority, the Commission, they're all going to have to do a better job of getting an understanding as to what is agreeable to that county, because frankly, some of the actions that have been taking place in Jefferson County over the number of years really shows the outside world that Jefferson County may not be open for business. It really doesn't make the rest of the state look all that great when, you know, Berkeley County or other counties are trying to attract business. So, you know, I think what the bigger issue is, and I think really what the Development Authority needs to do as they move forward with presumably a new board, is to understand and make it very clear to the business community, to the people of Jefferson County, exactly what type of business development they are looking to attract to that county. I think that's the bigger issue. Now, in Michael Mood's defense, Commissioner Mood's defense, you know, he has sat in on these meetings of the Development Authority, been a member of the Development Authority for a number of months. And so someone made the point the other day that he is a representative of the people elected him to make a decision. And, you know, the Development Authority and all the boards that really the county commission appoints to, I mean, those folks serve at the will and pleasure. And I'm not saying, I don't have anything negative to say about any member of the Development Authority currently, well I guess the previous Development Authority, because I just haven't sat in the meetings. I don't know. I do think it is important as they move forward to make sure that there are not only geographical representation from Jefferson County, but also different backgrounds. And, you know, one of the folks that you had on the other day had an agriculture background. I think it's because of Jefferson County is a very big agricultural county. I think it's important to have someone from the ag community there. I think it's important to have folks from the business community. So I serve on the Development Authority in Berkeley County, and we have, you know, we don't always agree, but I do think that we are on the same page and have the same vision for what Berkeley County, you know, brings to our county, or what we're able to bring as far as business. I don't see that in Jefferson. I don't think that, and I don't understand the reason. And everybody talks about Jefferson County being a purple county, and I think it's purple because you have folks that are way to the left and folks that are way to the right. And, you know, I guess in Berkeley County, I guess we just don't have that. And maybe it's not a political distinction as to why, you know, Berkeley County doesn't necessarily have these issues with our Development Authority. But, you know, it's a situation down there that everyone, for the Development Authority, the County Commission, are all going to have to do a better job of kind of uniting that community and getting a real plan together as to who they want and what type of business they want to attract to Jefferson County.
Michael Carl.
Well, let me start by saying that I completely disagree with Admiral Stubblefield's predicate about, how do you measure what's going on in Jefferson County. You look at Doge, which is horrible. Doge was great, and it's succeeding. And I don't know what their surveys per se, because it's so complicated. It involves many different initiatives. But overall, I think Doge at the federal level has been a plus. So it's wrong to use that to apply to Jefferson County. But I absolutely agree with Jason about the need to work through the nature of development in Jefferson County, given the overall situation of Jefferson County and the various interests that need to be addressed as you develop.
Larry Schultz.
Yes, I don't know all the granular details of this, but the vast number of people who were dismissed, basically the dismissal of the entire board, suggests to me that somebody in a decision-making capacity has decided that they need people who favor whatever kind of business it is that they favor. And so they're saying, well, we can't get these business plans we want to do through this group of people, who are all volunteers, by the way, and some of whom are probably don't have a financial stake in the decisions, and they're just sort of saying, I want my county to be reasonably calm, but I do want to see growth at the same time. It just sort of feels like what they're going to do is replace them with the only people who will volunteer now, who are people who, it hurts when you get fired from a volunteer job. I mean, what did I do wrong? And I'm sure that's exactly what a lot of the folks with the Doge cases were saying. So I would be very curious to see who gets appointed and accepts those appointments going forward, and what their connections are to the particular people who made the decision to dismantle this board. Because I have a feeling it's not going to be a random choice. I got a feeling they have people in mind already who are going to be on that development authority, and it's going to be green light time for certain kinds of things and red light time for other kinds of things.
Bill?
Yeah, my comment with Doge and Jefferson County are more on procedural grounds than anything else. Programmatic or the objective, the final objective is a different story. It's procedural that I was taking exception with.
Yeah. I'll read a text from one of our listeners who said, from someone who has attended more local EDA meetings literally than anybody else for 18 years, the post-Rockwell JCDA board seemed mostly interested in rewriting mission statements and nibbling around the margins of narrowly perceived quality of life issues rather than bringing real jobs to Jefferson County. That person asked to remain anonymous.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple of ways you can address that.
Yes.
One, the way the Jefferson County Commission did it. The other way is to do a more methodical, more procedural approach. Bring it out over a period of several weeks. Have public comments and seeing the root of the problem, and making a decision there.
Issue number 3, Mr. Barrett.
Oh, well, thank you. And again, it's great to be back on the Friday show. I've missed doing this regularly.
Wonderful to have you.
We see political rivals over the past number of years just attack one another more and more. And I was thinking about it this morning, as I sent you all this yesterday, but I was thinking about it this morning, and there's a quote from Harry Truman that said, anybody vote for Richard Nixon ought to go to hell. That now would just, no one would even pay attention to a comment like that now, because of the things that are said, that are portrayed online, memes that are fake. You have AI putting words in people's mouth that aren't true. And so, we've seen that to the Trumps. We've seen that to the Obamas. We see that in really any elected official at this point that gets attacked, by some type of political rival. So, my question is twofold. One, when is it too far? When you bring someone's family in, when you make things up that are completely untrue, and you have a malicious intent. When is it too far? Have we gone too far in this country? And how do you fix it?
Well, let's see. Of all the people in the room or on the phone who have held elected office, Michael Carl would be the person closest to that, along with Mr. Stubblefield. So let's go to Michael Carl first as a former tax commissioner, and then Mr. Stubblefield as a former county commissioner.
Well, that wasn't an elected office.
I know, it was a point.
But I appreciate the reference.
Sure.
I think that you have to, there's two things. There's the substance and there's the process. And certainly the process can be completely, overworked and invalidated and so forth. But the substance of the program, absolutely needs careful review on a objective basis, and I think that it's completely legitimate to criticize the process that people use to challenge the substantive policies.
Mr. Stubblefield.
I'm not sure I understood you, Mike. So there's more that. Jason's point about Truman's comment about Nixon. You're exactly right. It would not resonate today. There's a lot of things that have contributed. One, social media, the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news stations that have long since given up on objectivity. They parrot one ideology, and if you listen to those, you get indoctrinated by that particular ideology, and it's on both sides of the political aisle. So there's a lot of variables that have gone into this. Is the result, in part, is a survey recently done by NPR, PBS, Marist, is American democracy under threat? The numbers were pretty frightening. 76% say the country is under serious threat, or democracy is under serious threat. Of those, 89% of the Democrats feel that way, 80% of the independents feel that way, but 60% of the Republicans feel that way. That's a pretty large number from our three major demographics. And how do we turn it around? I don't know if we can turn it around, because social media is going to continue. Freedom of speech is going to continue. Our ideology biased news media on both sides of the political aisle are going to continue. People are going to see the other party, the other guy, as evil. We have lost this ability to view them as inherently good. We just have certain fundamental differences with them. It's not that way anymore. You see the other guy as being fundamentally evil. You pick up the Journal Junction, which we all tend to make fun at, and there is no middle ground here. There is one or the other. How far does that extend to our society today? I think it extends pretty deeply in our society today.
Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, it comes back, it seems to me, to your, for each individual, your personal values. For example, if there's a politician whose spouse is criticized, even though that person has no relation to the government whatsoever, and they're being criticized for political reasons to hopefully make a difference in the elected candidates' future in elected office, that's wrong. And we have to, A, say that it's wrong, and B, even more importantly, not do it ourselves. And that's been eroded a fair bit. There was a time when Mr. Truman to the contrary, who, by the way, was didn't know it at the time, but he was on to something. I don't think that Nixon voters should have gone to hell, but boy, Nixon put some of them through some pretty bad hell, here on Earth. That being said, there is a point where we have to have a standard. And the social media doesn't get to set the standard because they have a financial interest in this thing being as raucous as possible. It comes back to your personal morality and whether you're willing, in a public sphere especially, to make attacks on the decency or basic morality of a person who's not even in elected office and has nothing to do with elected office. Yes.
Mr. Ferretti.
Well, Senator Barrett, I feel sorry for you. You have the bravery to run for elected office, and I know you have aspirations going forward, and I hope they're fulfilled. But I just wonder what minefield you're going to have to traverse to get there, because I fear that we've got a toxic stew that is developing very quickly in society. We are in the information age. We have been now for a couple decades because of the internet. But now we are developing AI, which perfects the distortion and disinformation of the available information out there. And it does so with lightning speed and with a precision that's hard to detect. That is going to be a toxic stew going forward. The ability of the public to separate out what's fact and fiction is going to be lost because of the technology that we are developing. And I fear that there appears to be, at least with the current administration, efforts to deregulate or cast off any kind of regulatory scheme regarding AI, all in the name of development so we beat the Chinese. I think that comes with a lot of danger. So looking forward, I feel bad for you folks in the political arena because you're the ones who are going to bear the brunt of this, because your very lives are front and center for everyone to examine and unfortunately to distort. And I don't know have the answer as to how we're going to put the genie back in the bottle. I don't think it's possible, but I hope that government will continue to be vigilant in regulating that part of our politics and our society.
15 seconds to wrap it up, Jason.
I think Joe makes a really good point about limitations and restrictions on AI and distorting voices. Anybody could take my voice and put, at this point with AI, can make it say anything and it'll sound just like me. And that's where the people really aren't going to be able to determine what is fact and what is fiction.
All right, we get back. Larry Schultz, you are on the clock, and then Michael Carl. Studio with the Friday Five. That includes Joe Ferretti via telephone. Returning for the final segment, Mr. Jason Barrett in studio.
Good morning.
Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning.
The Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Still suffering the fact Mike Haight's not here that I can pick on.
And with issue number 4, attorney at law Lawrence Schultz.
Yes. This is a word that nobody's heard in the time that the show's been on the air, but it's going to get heard now. Jeffrey Epstein. Mr.
Are you predictable, Aaron?
I don't know how we could walk away from this on a talk show because there's a lot to talk about. I have lots of Republican friends, many of whom have told me that they don't really like Donald Trump, but they like his policies. And my question for them now is, which of the Epstein policies do you like the most? The one where he said he was going to reveal everything and the day he got into office, and he talked for months about getting all this before the public because there was a lot to learn? Or the part now where he says the entire Epstein affair was a hoax? That's one of the problems here with this thing, because we're sort of going back and forth. The number 2 man at the Department of Justice has been interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell now for a second day. I don't know with regard to what, and I don't know to what effect her previous charge, which was dismissed when the conviction for the things that she's in prison for now came through, it was dismissed. It was a perjury charge. So I don't know whether they're placing her under oath with a court reporter or whether they're just asking her. And I would have a question about whether you're likely to get the truth, especially since this is a person who's in jail and she's talking to a representative of the very guy who could get her out of jail. So this has all become very, very confusing. And I think over time, despite Speaker Johnson closing down the United States House of Representatives early so they didn't have to address it, I think this information is going to come out. The grand jury files that they're talking about releasing, of course, are being released, it seems to me, because that's the very place where there will not be anything about somebody whose name is neither Maxwell or Epstein. In other words, if we're going to find out about the question that everybody has, what was Donald Trump's involvement in this, then we're going to have to see the FBI records and all the rest of it, which up until very recently, or at least up till the date of the election, we were told we were going to hear about that. Now we're being told, oh no, we can't release that. There's way too much stuff. Steve Bannon, who is a conspiracy theorist of the first water, and was a Trump supporter, is rumored to have about 15 hours of tape with Mr. Epstein interviews. I think, in one of these civil cases or in some of this legal maneuvering that's going on, somebody needs to give Mr. Bannon a subpoena. And we need to hear about those discussions between Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon. Obviously we cannot, and nothing I'm saying here suggests that ever there should be even a remote pathway to the name of a victim, because there were lots of victims, they were children, and we don't ever want to, in the course of trying to find out what really happened here, hurt them in any way. And so that has to be great care there. But we need to know, it seems to me, that Mr. Trump, if he had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and what that relationship consisted of. Was it just an occasional drink, or was there more to it? Now, I recently saw some video of Mr. Epstein himself giving a deposition in a civil case in which he was asked, were you ever in a social situation with Donald Trump and underage or women under the age of 18? And he took a deep breath and he said he would like to answer the question, and then he pled the fifth. That he would not speak on the basis that he's permitted to avoid questions that could include criminal stuff. Now, does that convict Donald Trump of anything? Heck no. But it is also an interesting tip. So that was the kind of thing that drove Mr. Bannon to be so interested in this before the election, and the other sort of conspiracy theorist podcasters, speaking of social media and its efforts. But now Mr. Bannon's like, well, wait a minute. I thought we were going to find this out. I've been waiting to find this out. So I guess my question for the group is, what do you think is going to happen here? Are we going to find out to a certainty, one way or the other, what Donald Trump's involvement with Mr. Epstein consisted of?
Start on the phone with Joe Ferretti. Joe?
Well, what I think is going to happen, Larry, unfortunately, is the Democrats are going to screw this up. Because what we've seen the last 2 weeks is that this is a mess of Donald Trump's own making. He appealed to these people with these conspiracy theories, and now he can't follow through on them. So they're mad at him, and those folks are what ginned this up to begin with, his crowd. And now we got the Wall Street Journal coming forward with information okay, and Rupert Murdoch, causing Trump to have to sue that newspaper over publications about this issue. So what the Democrats need to do is sit back and say, we're interested in the concerns about the thousands of girls who were abused, and we're interested in concerns about justice. That's it. Don't try to get Trump. He's going to get himself because he's spinning like a top. He's yelling at clouds, and he's yelling about the creators of South Park, for God's sakes. So just let him dig his own hole and step back and be smart about this. That's what I hope will happen going forward, but I fear it won't.
Bill.
Yeah, Larry, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not going to rise to the bait. I know you're very partisan and feel very strongly about this. I could care less right now. I'm more concerned about other issues. I'm more concerned about our national debt. I'm more concerned about children starving in Gaza. I'm more concerned about the consequence of a do-nothing Congress. I'm more concerned about what's going to be the ramifications of the big, beautiful bill. I know you feel strongly about this. I have that it does not rise to the level that I'm going to lose a lot of sleep over.
Bill, thank you for covering for me while I was fixing Jason's mic by ending early. Mike Carl.
Well, first of all, I think I kind of agree with the point Bill just made. This whole Epstein thing is nothing but a desperate attempt by the people that they're opposed to Trump on policy to distract from the success he's having. And it's nothing more than that. And to the extent Bill said that in a little slightly different way, why it's not meaningful and shouldn't be focused on, then he and I agree. But it throws me, just to counter or to support what I just said about priorities and meritorious focus. How do you, if Trump's so terrible, how do you explain the fairly strong stock market records we're having? Despite major, economic agenda movements, both active and proposed. So that. But this Epstein thing is just a desperate distraction by the Democrats.
Bill, you were about to say.
I was going to say, I did not agree with Mike, the successes of the president. I'll not go. I'll not go that far.
I understand that. Yeah, you don't understand the success of the president.
I do not.
You hate the fact that the stock market hasn't plummeted to support your position.
But what did the stock market do last year? Went up 25%. What did it do in the last 12 months? Went up 16%. So that was not plummeting stock market. 25% last year. That's pretty impressive, Mike.
If we rate presidencies by the performance of the S&P in 23 and 24, both years it was up over 20%. So are you saying the Biden presidency was good?
No, the Biden presidency was in spite.
But the stock market was higher.
That was in spite of the Biden presidency.
The index had gains of 25 and 26% the last 2 years under the Biden presidency.
Well,
so by your own measurement, that was a successful presidency.
But who was running the Congress then?
You didn't put that as part of your caveat with Trump.
Well,
you said Trump.
Well, it's an important part of why we're still doing okay.
Well, you didn't include that in your
I'm
initial
sorry.
statements.
Well, let me add it then.
You got to add it now.
Okay,
Put it on the record.
Okay, I'm adding it now.
Jason Barrett, go ahead.
Epstein, right?
Yeah.
I think the majority of Americans want the information. And I think that they want the information because both sides have weaponized the whole Epstein situation of Republicans accusing Bill Clinton of engaging in the acts that we've talked about, just as the Democrats have done to Donald Trump. I think that we're talking about something that's very, if any political figure or anyone that was involved in the raping of young girls, I mean, I think that should come out, and I think those people should go to jail forever. But we talked about the previous, or we haven't talked about, the previous administration had the ability to release information as it relates to Epstein. That wasn't done. Now we have the DOJ questioning for yesterday and today of Maxwell. Well, and I think Larry is fair to bring up that this is a woman that is in jail for subjecting young girls to being raped. And so I don't know how much trust we're going to have in her. I don't know how much trust we're going to have in any video of Jeffrey Epstein saying anything. So, I do think, to Bill's point, I do think there are far more important issues in this country. But at the same time, if there are leaders, whether they're presidents, former presidents, members of the Senate or Congress or whoever, that have been engaged in this type of acts, I think the people that they represent have every right to know that.
Back to you, Larry.
If just to respond briefly to Jason, I agree with a lot of what he said, but if Donald Trump didn't want Epstein to be discussed, the way to address that was not to discuss him during the campaign like he did. And so he's hoist on his own petard, we might say. He brought it up, and now all of a sudden he don't want to brought up anymore. The difficulty with that is we are way down in a rabbit hole. But this is a rabbit hole that he dug, he opened up, and he welcomed everybody in right up until it started to look like maybe that wasn't such a smart idea, that he could have probably got Steve Bannon's vote without doing that. And so I'm interested in the political sort of ramifications of this. I do not want to see our stock market crash. On the other hand, it was at about $45,000 before Donald Trump took over the presidency, and that's about where it is now. So
it hasn't crashed.
Well, yeah, okay. What a celebration that's going to be. We should declare a federal holiday.
If Trump
didn't crash the economy.
If Trump were half as terrible as you say he is, it would have crashed.
Well, part of that, of course, is that Taco Trump has backed off on these tariffs so many times that they haven't really hit yet. We're still going to have to wait and see about all that. In the meantime, this Epstein thing will fill the news waves with people on all sides making their decisions.
All right, Larry, thank you. Issue number 5, Michael Carl.
Okay. My question is, what will be the ultimate political implications of the false accusations against Trump's involvement with Russia influencing the 2016 election?
Mr. Barrett. And we got about a minute and a half for each of you on this.
Sure. Well, I think it's a great question, and one that I've been thinking about is that, when we look at the voters in 2016 and those folks that broke to Trump, and in 2020, some of those kind of undecided, those persuadable voters that supported Trump in 16, some of them went to Biden in 20. And then you saw them go back to Trump in 24. And I think if it comes out that was a complete hoax that was orchestrated by Obama and the Obama folks, then I think that's going to give some credibility to Trump with those persuadable voters who, it depends on where the economy is. And, if Trump is having some issues and the administration is struggling somewhat, the economy is struggling, where those voters may have gone back to the Democrats in 28. I think because of this, I think that it may keep a lot of those folks with the MAGA movement as whoever takes that on moving forward, whether that's J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or whoever that becomes. I think that it may solidify those persuadable voters who again went back and forth from 16, 20, and then back to Trump in 24. It may cause a lot of those folks to stick with the Republicans moving forward.
Mr. Ferretti via telephone.
I saw a Republican on Fox the other day attempt to explain this issue, and it's amazing. He was asked, why do you think Obama is up now for prosecution and the other people in his administration up for prosecution over this Russian collusion thing? And this guy said, the Dems were guilty of creating a narrative that allowed people to think Trump colluded with Russia. So we're going to prosecute people because some people in the American public thought there might be something between Russia and Trump. Well, you can't prosecute people over what the citizens conclude based upon a bunch of information out there in the ether. The fact is, this was studied exhaustively by numerous committees, including the Senate Intelligence Committee. Russia did attempt to interfere in our 2016 election, and the only reason this is an issue today is because Trump is still chapped about that, which is amazing, because he can't get over the fact that some people believe that he must have been playing footsie with the Russians. So what? It's nothing but a canard.
William.
Yeah, I'm going to give kind of the variant of my answer to Larry to that and Mike. I think we have so many more pressing issues right now on our plate that we need to address. There's going to be a lot of examples in recent history that somebody can pull out of the bag and make a major issue out of it. To some people, it's very important. To other folks, and I put myself in that category, less so. I'm more concerned about the issues we had at hand today, and I wish somebody would start addressing them.
Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, Marco Rubio.
Marco.
Marco Rubio.
I'm Mario, he's Marco.
Yeah, that's right. It's always hard to tell the two of you apart.
It's the hands.
He signed off on an intelligence committee report that actually said that the Russians did attempt to interfere in the 2016 election. Part of the reason why this is coming up now is because of the issue we just discussed a few minutes ago, and there's all kinds of stuff coming out. Why the Washington Commanders ought to change their name back to the Redskins, and the Cleveland Guardians ought to become the Indians again. He's got a million distractions he's going to throw out, and of course, attacking Obama is always a go-to for him down at the bottom of the list when he's desperate. But there's nothing to this. There was something to the fact that the Russians tried to interfere in our election, but the finding of Mr. Rubio's committee was that they did not succeed. Plain and simple. Take it up with Marco Rubio. Don't waste our time with it, Mr. Trump. He's your guy.
Back to you, Michael.
That the Russians tried to, interfere, and it's hardly shocking, but it has nothing to do to support the thought that Trump was part of that. That is the absolute lie that needs to be rejected, and the public understands that that's an absolute lie.
A response, Mr. Schultz?
I can simply say that, like the Epstein report, we don't really know the truth of what Trump did with Putin. We do know that he's been very generous to Mr. Putin with regard to his attack on Ukraine, even flipping it to say Ukraine attacked Russia. So I'm not going to go along the pathway of saying, well, there's logical consistency in what Mr. Trump does. I can't find any logical consistency, and I won't attest to it.
Ukraine will survive because Trump is supporting them.
I'm a little surprised in some of the responses in that we have problems that are great today. Why do we need to bother with this stuff from the past? That I am a bit surprised at that, because I think it's important that actions in the past are answered for, and that you have information. No matter how big the problems of today are, I think if there was some illegal activity, if there was some sort of meddling of some sort, I do think we should know about it. I think when the most powerful people in the country are accused of being in a plot, I think that should be discussed. I think that should be investigated. I think we should get answers on that. If I think that Trump is doing something illegal in the White House, I think it should be investigated. If I think Obama did something illegal to keep Trump from getting in the White House, I think that should be investigated. Now, the problem with these investigations is we never get answers. We just get lower level people who are fired or thrown in prison, and nobody of power ever seems to pay. But I do think if there's smoke, sometimes there is fire.
Can I push back on that slightly?
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. If we did everything in absolute terms, fine. Everything's not an absolute. It's a deflection in a lot of cases. All the energy we put into looking at past history takes away from some of the energy of addressing problems that we have today. That's my major issue. It's deflection.
And on that note, get your final thoughts together, 8 seconds apiece after we get through the last break of the show here. Final thoughts, we start on the phone with Joe Ferretti first. Joe, go.
I think we've reached a point where we should discuss what's happening in Gaza without being declared anti-Semitic.
Larry Schultz.
Do your push mowing just after dark. It's too hot during the day.
Bill Stubblefield.
Remember your pets in this heat.
Michael Carl.
The card's best thing is to make the wild card.
Jason, you got 30 seconds.
Oh, look at that. So those of us that grew up in the 80s and early 90s lost 3 people that were a big part of our childhood. Ozzy Osbourne, Malcolm Jamal Warner, and Hulk Hogan.
That's the truth. Hulkamania, baby. And Malcolm Jamal Warner, he was like your brother on TV.
Yeah,
you saw him every week. Hey, the Dave Ramsey Show is coming up next. This is Talk Radio, WR on Martinsburg and TV 10. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk again in 70 short hours.